Hey everyone, good morning. Good morning. It is around 10 a.m. in Japan, and in Ohio, which is where I'm from, it should be around 8 p.m. So, morning, and thank you all for being here, guys. I'm so sorry that I'm late. I tried to do, this is my first time doing my radio show on YouTube because usually I do it on Be Live. So, I did do like a pre scheduled show, but I couldn't, I couldn't get it started on my computer, so I just did it on mic and on my phone right now. So that's why I'm like 10, 12 minutes late. So sorry about that. So I have to learn how to use it because I don't know how to use it yet. All right, so anyways, why don't we get started? So first, let me introduce myself since this is my first time doing this on YouTube. My name is Champagne Odin, but my teaching name is Miss Champagne. And I'm from Akron, Ohio. Shout out to LeBron James. And I've been in Japan now for 11 years. I'm an English teacher, corporate trainer, and private tutor. And that means that I teach English to children, adults, and professionals. So for about the last 3 years, I have been doing those three different things: English teacher, private tutor, corporate trainer. And the reason is because I had been a classroom teacher where, you teach at a school. And when I say school, I mean like in elementary school, junior high school, and you're employed by somebody. And I got to a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I had my lawyer change my visa, and now I'm like self-employed. So I have my own one-on-one private students or one-on-one group students. And then I also may do a little bit of freelancing here and there. But now, because I have a lot of free time and I'm doing my PhD in education, I want to spread the word of what I'm doing a lot more. And I'm able to do that a lot more because now I'm not working for other people. And literally, like if you're a classroom teacher, you'll be in school from, 10, like from maybe 8 to 5, but no, this is Japan. You'll probably be there from 8 to 10, maybe. Because sometimes I would be at school from 8 to 10 p.m. at night because it's just that much stuff you have to get done. It's really, really annoying. But anyway, so we're going to talk about a lot of things on my radio show. So on my radio show, the reason why it's called Black Boss Radio Japan is because I want to encourage Blacks globally and to come to Japan. I love teaching here. I love living here. It's so peaceful. There's a lot of, racist stuff you don't have to deal with. And that's what this radio show is all about. And also I like to, I'm into other Facebook communities. I like to look at the issues that we have, not only as women, but as Blacks in Japan. And I like to discuss that and give my spin on how you can combat these type of problems that we have in Japan. And I'm not saying we have a lot of issues, but anywhere you live, regardless of who you are and what you do, there's going to be issues. So that's what we're going to discuss on this radio show. Okay, so anyways, our topics for today, I have 3 topics. The first one is, what is it like to live in Japan? And that's a very general question, but I get asked that a lot, so I'm going to answer that. And how do they treat Black people? And I think when they say that, I think they mean how do Japanese people treat Black people? That's the second topic. And the third topic is getting a working visa in Japan. So we're going to talk about 3 different topics. We're going to go for about 40 minutes because I actually have to teach class after that to my private students. So let's get started. Okay, so what is it like to live in Japan? Okay, so once again, guys, that is a very, very general question. And it's hard for me to answer general questions because I don't know what you're really asking. So try as much as you can if you have a specific question to ask me that, okay? All right, now, so in general, what it's like to live in Japan, it really just depends on a lot of things. It really depends on a lot of things. So it depends on first where you live. Okay, so for example, if you live in the countryside, like I used to live in Ibaraki, I lived in Tsuchiura and Tsukuba, and I was literally bored out of my mind, and I hated it there. And I actually hated the school I was working at too, so maybe that played into it. But it was so boring. But now I live in Tokyo. I live near Tokyo Skytree. And I'm not saying I have an active social life because I don't. I'm such a nerd. But that is so much more exciting than living in the countryside. So if you come to Japan, sometimes you really don't know when or especially if you get a job. Sometimes you will just be put where you're going to be put, and there's really nothing you can do about it. So yeah, it just, like, once again, it just depends on where you're going to live. Number two, race also depends, makes your stay in Japan good or bad. And what's funny is that, like, I'm a Black American, and the reason why I left America, I left when I was 21, 23, is that I got so sick of racism, because I'm like, why am I getting treated differently based on the color of my skin? Like, that is so lame. So I just got sick of it. So I just finally left. I went to the UK, which sounds really, really funny because they're racist too. However, I discovered, because I'm Black American, we have a lot of privileges, and a lot of the racism we deal in America, we don't deal with it at all overseas. And that's one thing I feel like white America always tries to tell Black America, oh, you can't go overseas, people don't like you, and this and that. And guys, that is just not true. I'm telling you, it's so not true. Anyways, so race plays a factor. Now, I discovered that being a Black American here, like, it's really, really cool, because, like, once again, I don't have to deal with racism. I have to, and when I say racism, I mean like a cop coming up to me and shooting me. You never have to deal with that as a person in Japan, nor as a Black person in Japan. The cops are not going to run up on you and shoot you just because you're Black. So I absolutely love that. Now, being white in Japan, I'm not really sure, because I don't have any white friends, but they seem to like it. But they seem to get very agitated, because a lot of the whites that come here a lot of them are American, and they have this arrogant, like, oh, well, they have to do it this way because this is the way it's done. But in Japan, and this is a rich Asian country, they're not going to do what you want them to do just because you want them to do it. It's just not like that in Japan. So I find like my white colleagues have a real hard time adjusting. And what's even funny for the men, because a lot of them end up with Japanese women, they still have this problem adjusting to it. And it's like, dude, you've been here, like, you're married, like, you haven't adjusted yet. But it's not, because they feel like they're entitled, and, you know, I'm white and it should be done my way. But it just doesn't happen like that in Japan. Now, for my Asian counterparts, I've discovered that in Japan, like, a lot of Asian, well, let's just say all non-Asian Japanese people, so anyone who's Asian but you're not Japanese, they face a lot of discrimination. And I don't want to say a lot, but I feel like I get treated better, and I get a job because I'm Black American. But don't get me wrong, like, I'm doing my PhD in education, I got my master's, I'm on my money, like, I'm about my business. But I feel like I get treated better than they do. And which is crazy, because as a Black person, I think we're trained to think that people are always going to dog you. And, you know, but in Japan, being a Black American, I discovered that that's really not true. So, but like my Asian counterparts who live here, like the Filipinos especially, they get treated really, I don't want to say badly, but I'm just going to say they get treated really badly, because a lot of them come over here as hostesses, and that stigma, being a hostess bar maid, a lot of the other Filipino women who are not even hostess workers, they're teachers, but that stigma gets put onto them. You know, they get stereotyped like, oh, you know, she's just a hostess and she's here for money. And it's like, all the foreigners who come are here for money. So, like, why are you just singling them out? Like, that's just so lame. So once again, I think it really depends on your race and what it's like to live in Japan. As a Black American person, it's gold, like, seriously. Now, another thing about living in Japan, it's very peaceful. It's very, very quiet, which I absolutely love, because I have went to Hong Kong. I've been to 30 countries, and I find that, like, when I compare Japan to other Asian countries, Japan is very, very quiet. I mean, now if you're in like Shinjuku or Shibuya, that's kind of like being in New York, Times Square. So of course it's going to be, you know, a little louder. But for the most part, it's very, very peaceful. When I was in Hong Kong a few months ago for like a workshop, literally people were yelling from 2 a.m. Like, they just never stopped. It was like all day yelling. And I'm just like, what is up? But in Japan, like, it's just quiet. It's quiet unless there's construction doing. So I love that part about it. It's quiet and it's peaceful. And I do feel that Japan is really cool. Some ways it's very inconvenient, but in other ways it's very convenient. Like, for example, there's 7-Elevens everywhere, which is great because people need to buy stuff. People need to go to the ATM. People need to send boxes, you know, because you can do a takuben, which is like, it's similar to like FedEx, where you can just go to, you know, the 7-Eleven and mail something. So I really love that. So it can be convenient. Sometimes it's very inconvenient, okay? Now, another thing about living in Japan, I feel that people who live in Japan, and I'm not even talking about Japanese people, I'm talking about all of us, I feel that a lot of us are spoiled. And the reason why I say that is because Japan is so clean and it's very, very safe. And when we leave, and I'm talking about everyone who lives in Japan, as soon as we get on the plane and like we touch down in another country, it's obvious how spoiled and entitled you really are. Because, like, for example, I also teach in Africa. I teach in Rwanda and Ghana. Now, Rwanda, in my opinion, is cleaner than Japan, and the roads are just as good as Japan. But Ghana, in contrast, like, you're literally on a roller coaster when you're riding down the street. It is so annoying. And then, like, I found that Ghana, they have a lot of trash just like on the street. And I'm not saying that in Japan there isn't trash on the street. There is, but it's not like, it's very minimum. Rwanda, there's no trash on the street. So that's really, really good. So it's just like, from living in Japan, you get really, really entitled and spoiled, and you don't want to leave the country. Like, you're like, oh my God, people are yelling. Oh my God, there's trash on the street. Oh my God, the roads aren't smooth. I just feel like living in Japan gets you accustomed to living in a certain manner. And it makes you kind of not want to move out of the country, and it makes you kind of want to stay in the country. So I would say you just got to be very careful with that, because it even happens to me when I leave, and I'm like, wow, because I went to, like, you know, going to the military bases is really cool. And when I went to the toilet, I was just like, oh, like, I forgot that not all toilets are like Japanese toilet. And I know that sounds really, really lame, but if you've seen a Japanese toilet, everything, like, Japan is all about how things look. You know what I'm saying? Everything looks good. Everything looks clean. Everything looks presentable. But as soon as I went to the toilet on the base, I was just like, what's this? You know, I forgot. Like, you forget that not every place is like Japan. So that's what it's like to live in Japan. It's cool. It's convenient. There are a lot of inconveniences. Okay, I haven't even scratched the surfaces on that. But depending on your race, like if you're Black American, it's gold. White, I'm not really sure. They kind of have entitlement issues. Asians also deal with a lot of discrimination here. So I think it just depends on where you live, and it really depends on your race, okay? Now, next question, how do they treat Black people? Okay, so one of my friends from my hometown, she asked me this, and I was just like, okay, Black people, like, that is so general. So I said, okay, I'm gonna answer your question. That's a very general question, but I'm gonna answer it the best that I can. And to be honest, the question I want to ask her is, what Blacks are you talking about? Because she's actually mixed. She's Black and white. But if she were in Japan, nobody would see her as Black. Like, when they see me, they know I'm Black, but they also think that I'm mixed. But she would just be, you know, mixed. So the thing is, it depends on what Black you are. Are you USA Black? Are you African Black? Are you Jamaican Black? Are you Brazilian Black? Okay, so being USA Black, you get treated very well. And the reason is because, number one, you're American, and number two, you're Black American. Like, Black Americans, I feel, are some of the most popular Blacks, and I feel because, like, we have a culture. I'm not saying our culture is all that, but it's very, very popular, and other people emulate our culture, and that's across all races and across all countries. And also Jamaicans get their culture imitated as well. But in terms of African culture, which I do love, that's not really imitated. Like, across the globe. So do you see what I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I feel that Black American culture is very popular. Like, you know, we have Michael Jackson, and if you try to compare that to, like, maybe an African celebrity, who would be their equivalent of Michael Jackson? Do you understand what I mean? I'm just speaking very, very generally. Now, if you're African Black, you are going to face a lot of discrimination, a lot. And if you're Caribbean Black, and more in particularly Brazilian, you're going to experience a lot of a lot of discrimination and racism. Now, let's talk about the Black Americans. So, Black Americans, like I said, we get treated very, very well. Like, I've really had no issues with racism. Now, I have had like one-on-one issues with racism, but I'm talking about like as a whole. Because the thing is, people will say, oh, Japanese people are racist. I kind of think like, I don't think they're racist. I think they're racialists, which means they put their people first. And I don't see anything wrong with that. It's a very honest way of living, and they let you know up front what it is. And I don't have a problem with that. That's great. So I'm here to do business. I'm not here to do anything else with you. If that's how you feel, that's what's up. I appreciate it. Let's keep it business, okay? Now, the thing with that, so being Black American, it's like you get treated so well. You get opportunities for jobs, visas, you can buy land. You're just entitled to a lot of things just based off of your American citizenship, and based on that you're Black American. Now, as an African person, and this is any like African from any African country, they face discrimination a lot because it's assumed by everybody who lives here that the only reason an African man or woman is marrying a Japanese person or somebody who has permanent residency in Japan is that they need a visa. And I'm not saying that that is true, because I've known some African guys who, come to Japan and they don't get married. They come as a student, or they come and they have a business license. Now that's very minute, but not every single African man here or person here is marrying for a visa. Now there are some that do, but based on that stereotype, people think that, oh, all the African guys do that, so they have to deal with that. And then they also have to deal with like working opportunities. Now I will say this about the Nigerians. The Nigerians, they set up shop in Japan, and I really respect them for that. So they have like importing, exporting businesses where they export cars or trucks or whatever, bicycles, whatever it is. They export it back to Nigeria, and they actually own a yard, or maybe they rent the yard. And a yard is kind of like a what is it, like a not a workshop. It's like a scrap yard. Where they'll do their business, and they'll put the cars in those big containers and then mail them off to Nigeria. So the Nigerians, they'll come, maybe they might marry somebody, or they might have a business visa, and then they'll flip it. They'll buy businesses such as hip hop stores, bars, and then they have the import exporting. So they don't just keep regular jobs, which brings me to the other Nigerian Africans. They tend to work in like factories, or they'll work, like factories, like a car factory. They may work at like Uniqlo factory. But I find that a lot of the African men who are not Nigerian, they kind of take, I don't want to say low level jobs, because I don't want to discourage anybody from working. Working is working, but I just feel like they kind of level down, whereas the Nigerians kind of level up, if that makes sense. Now, but anyways, nonetheless, they still face discrimination because, there's that stigma, oh, that you're just here to marry our women and you're here just to make money. And it's like all of us here are, here to make money. So I don't think they're treated very well. But once again, it's like the Japanese, it's like with the Japan, everything is kind of institutionalized. So they're not going up to you saying, hey, you suck because you're a gaijin. It's nothing like that. It's more like all the discrimination you're going to face is already built. It's already ingrained into society. Like if you don't speak, write, or read Japanese fluently, you can't open up like a security account, for example, if you want to trade stocks and bonds, or if you don't speak and read Japanese, you can't do this. If you don't read and speak Japanese fluently, you can't do this. So it's kind of like that. And I feel the reason they are doing that is because they want to put their peoples first. And once again, I don't think anything's wrong with that. It's very honest, and it lets you know where they stand with you, okay? Now, let's talk about the Caribbean Blacks. Now, a lot of the Caribbean Blacks, like the Jamaicans, they come here as teachers, so a lot of them are my coworkers, but I feel that they are also discriminated against because they're not seen as native speakers, which is crazy because they are native English speakers. It's just that they're not first world native English speakers. So it's kind of like there's a hierarchy in Japan where you have like the American, British, and then you'll have like the Caribbean Blacks, and then you'll have like the Filipinos. Like, so there's definitely a hierarchy here, and I feel like they're not offered as many opportunities as they could be based on they're from third world countries, which I think is really unfair. So I hope that answers your question about how Japan treats Black people. Once again, like, it depends on what Black person you are, and where you're from and what job you do. So it all just depends. But I would say that they're not, like, I don't think Japanese people are coming up to you going out their way to say, hey, you stupid gaijin. It's not like that. Like, we all face discrimination because we're all, like, most of us don't read, write, and speak Japanese fluently where we could be at the same level as a Japanese person. And it's just ingrained into society. That's just the way it is. So hopefully that answered your question. Okay. Oh, and you know what, guys? I wanted to share this story with you before I end. I was reading on one of the websites that this Black lady, I don't know her personally, but I've been in contact with her. She said that this old Japanese lady, like, came up to them. This is so not funny, but I'm just trying to imagine it. So anyways, I think she was in like a coffee shop or something on the 3rd floor. So the Japanese lady comes in yelling at her, talking about, I don't know what the Japanese lady said to her, but she did say, like, because that lady, let's call her Andrea. I don't know what her name is. Andrea said the old Japanese lady came to her and was like, oh, gaijin, passport. Like, so, and the Japanese old lady started patting her down like she's the cops. So Andrea took out her phone and videoed her. And then after I guess the thing was done, she went to the police station. So the police said to her, well, there's nothing we can do. And she was like, but I have the video. And they were like, oh, well, you can't post that video because if you do, then she can sue you. And I was just like, what? That is crazy. So she physically assaults her. You can't do anything about it. And then you're going to, like, tell her she can't post it because she can sue her? Like, that's crazy. So I asked one of my friends at the embassy, and he said, actually, if anybody assaults you in Japan, what you should try to do is get your phone and record it, because that's your evidence. Then what you do is go to the police and report it. Now, if those police, whichever police box or station you go to, don't want to accept your case, go to another one. And if they all keep saying, oh, we can't help you, we can't help you, we can't help you, then finally you can go to a lawyer's office in Kasumigaseki station. And this is on the Hibiya line. And I believe it's 1 or 2 stops before or after Roppongi station. So they have an international lawyer's office. I don't know the name, sorry guys. But anyways, the international lawyers will tell you your rights. And you can sue that person. Now, if that person has no money, you might want to just say, never mind. It's okay. Don't, never mind. Just don't do it again. But if they do have money, you definitely want to sue them, because I don't care what country you are in. No one has the right to put their hands on you, especially if you didn't do anything. I just think maybe this old lady, I'm not trying to make excuses for her, but I've never seen an old Japanese lady attack anybody. Like, I've never seen that. And I'm not saying that it hasn't happened or it won't happen, but it's just, I'm surprised. I've never heard of this. So, but anyways, if that happens, you want to take a video, go to the police station, and if they will not help you, then just go to the international lawyers and sue. If they have money, pursue it. If they don't have money, pursue it. So, bam, that's how you do it. And that, like I said, I don't want to make it seem like Japanese people are violent, because I've never seen any Japanese person attack any foreigner. I've never seen that, unless that foreigner was Asian and I didn't know that they weren't like Japanese. But even then, I've never seen it. So I'm not trying to say like, oh, be on the lookout or anything like that. I just find it funny. I mean, not funny, but it's just surprising that an old Japanese lady would step to this sister like that and like, tell her, where's your passport and stuff. So anyways, okay, moving on to the next question, getting a working visa in Japan. Okay, so guys, I give weekly seminars. I usually do that on Zoom, but I'm thinking of changing it to Facebook. So we'll see how that goes. But anyways, I talked about this, I think 2 weeks ago, and there's basically 7 steps to getting a visa in Japan. I kind of don't remember all the steps right now because, like I said, I did this webinar a few weeks ago, but I'm going to talk about it in general. Now, the way that you get a working visa, first, there's a lot of questions. People might ask like, oh, Do I need a teaching license? Oh, do I need a degree? Oh, do I need a CELTA? Oh, do I need a TOEFL? Oh, do I need a TOESL? Yes and no. The first thing you definitely need is a degree. You need a 4-year degree from an accredited university in your country, or another country, whatever. That is one of the requirements. You are not required by immigration to have a teaching's license. You're not required by immigration to have a CELTIC. You're not required by immigration to have a TOEFL. You're not required by immigration to have a TOESL. You're not required by immigration to have a degree in teaching English. You're not required to have a degree in teaching ESL skills to children, okay? Immigration, they don't care about all of those specifics. They care that you have a 4-year degree in any subject from an accredited university, okay? So that's the first thing. You need to graduate from university, because if you don't have your university degree and you want to teach in Japan, I'm not sure how you can do that, unless you're going to come as a preacher and you can like teach in the church, because I've known people that have done that, but I don't know what his visa was, so I don't know. So anyways, first thing, 4-year degree, you need to graduate. Okay, so after you graduate, you need to apply for jobs in Japan, and I've also discussed that in my webinars, and I'm gonna make a note to put the links in the description box so you guys can look at those. I always record my webinars so people can go back and see them. Okay, so after you apply for a job, after everything's said and done, you interviewed, you sent all your documents, they give you the job offering. Okay, thank you. Here's the job offering, sign, send it back to Japan. They're gonna send you some paperwork from Japan to wherever you live. You need to take that paperwork and your passport and your degrees and everything you've already given your employer and that you already sent to Japan. You need to take that to the Japanese consulate or the Japanese embassy in your country. Now, guys, on a side note, if you live in America, we have a huge country. So let me tell you a story. Like, I'm from Ohio, and we do not have a Japanese embassy or a consulate. The one that is closest is in Michigan. So at the time, like, I've been in Japan 11 years, so this was 11 years ago. So at the time that I had my passport, I had traveled so much that my passport was fully booked, except for the last 2 pages. And I didn't know, in my ignorance then, that those pages are left blank intentionally, even though it says on those pages, these pages are left blank intentionally. So I took it to the embassy or the consulate in was it Detroit? It was Detroit. And the dude was like, he said, "You don't have any space in your passport." I was like, "What?" He said, "Yeah, you need to get some more pages put into your passport." I was like, "Okay, thank you, I'll do that." So anyways, once I did that, I had to pay like $100 to get it expedited and to get the pages put into the passport. So once I did that, I was able to then just simply mail my passport back, because normally I would have to go again. But he said, no, you already came. And this was a white guy. This was not a Japanese person. Because if he was Japanese, he probably would have been like, no, you need to come back again. But really nice dude. So he said, just mail it back, and I did. And then I was able to get my visa stamped into my passport. Nowadays, they don't stamp visas in your passport, so you guys don't have to worry about that. So anyways, my point is, once you go to the consulate, they will give you, the consulate or the Japanese consulate or the Japanese embassy, they will give you all the information you need. They'll tell you step by step what you need to do. And nowadays, they will give you either your Gaijin card, and your Gaijin card is your foreign registration card or foreign alien registration card. And what you do is that they either give it to you at the consulate, or when you fly into Japan, you can get it at the airport. So it just depends on what's going to happen. I'm not sure. You're going to get it one way or the other. I'm not sure. But anyways, so after once again, you graduate from university, you get your degree, you apply for the job, you sign for the job, you get the paperwork from your job in Japan, you take it to the Japanese consulate, they will give you the step-by-step things you need to do and talk about, or things you need to do. You do that, and then they'll either give you your alien registration card there, or you'll get it when you arrive to Japan, okay? So it's as simple as that. I mean, easier said than done. Of course, there's a lot more steps that you have to do, but I hope that makes it clear for you guys. So guys, like what I don't want you to do, I don't want you to panic about not having a I want you to panic about not having a tussle or a TOEFL. No, all of those things are very, very useful. Don't do those. All I'm saying is that immigration, who gives you the working visa to work in Japan, 4-year degree. Okay, so as long as you have that, you are golden, you're good to go. All right. Now, on a side note, if you have a teaching degree, not a teaching degree or a teaching license from your country, that is a plus, but it's not a requirement. However, at a lot of international schools, they do require either or both. Okay, but I found ways to get around that because I'm doing my PhD in education, and I have found that in Japan, having a PhD kind of levels you up. Well, I mean, I don't have it yet. I'm a PhD candidate, but I'm just doing my dissertation right now. But having that kind of trumps having a teaching license and degree. Well, I guess I will have a teaching degree when I'm finished with the PhD. But anyway, so I found that because I'm doing a PhD, that I was able to beat the requirement of having a teaching license, because a PhD, I guess, in Japan is a little bit higher than a teaching license, which is great. So don't fret about it. I feel like there's always ways to get around not having the exact requirements, okay? And as far as having a TOEFL, a TOEFL, and a CELTA, those things are great to have. However, I feel that if you have that, you will be more prepared when you come to Japan. But however, if you've never been to Japan, there's no amount of studying, there's no amount of research, and I'm talking about secondhand stuff, that you can do that will get you ready for the real deal. Like when you step into that classroom, all of that training you've had is going out the window, because I'm sure the training that you have was not geared to teaching in Japan. So you're gonna learn all that stuff on the job, okay? All right, so guys, that is it for today. So we talked about 3 things. What is it like to live in Japan? Living in Japan is totally cool, but once again, it depends on your race. It depends on where you live, but for the most part, it's really cool. Number 2, how do they treat black people? It depends on the black person you are. So are you American black person? Are you Jamaican black person? Are you African black person? You'll treat it differently according to your passport. Black Americans are treated very well here, and that's why I encourage black Americans from the States or wherever you're living to come and teach in Japan. And I also encourage other blacks as well. Just know that there's going to be some discrimination there because you're not black American, or you're not black British, or you're not black French. I mean, it's all a passport game in Japan, and in Asia for the most part. Now, getting a working visa, very simple, straight to the point. Graduate from your university with a 4-year degree, apply for a job, get the job, take the paperwork from your job to the Japanese consulate or embassy in your country, arrive in Japan, get your gaijin card, which is your alien registration card, and then you begin your job. And that is it. All right, guys, so thank you so much for joining me, and I will get better at learning how to schedule these radio shows, because I still don't know how to do it. So I'm going to do some research, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.